If you haven't already, go ahead and take a moment to subscribe while I'm getting this set up. Okay, so I came across a TikToker named Conrad Cinque. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. I think it might be French. I don't know. But he made a pretty interesting video about Diddy. He's actually doing a whole entire series about the whole entire Diddy situation and looking at it from a perspective that most people haven't. A lot of people are more focused on the assault cases and the baby oil and what celebrities are involved into this, but they're not really asking the question as to why now this happened when it came to Diddy. Now, if you're not familiar with Conrad, let's go ahead and play the video that made him kind of known on TikTok with over 1 million subscribers.
To my favorite teacher's house when I was doing my 21-year prison bid. She is the bomb. She doesn't know I'm coming. Here we go. Let's surprise her.
Mr. Lacey? Oh my god!
And he has a lot of videos talking about his experience in prison. And while he was in prison, he earned 2 degrees and I think a culinary certificate. One of his degrees is in history and the other one I want to say is in anthropology, I want to say. So very well read. He said he read over 1,700 books, very educated, very well versed. Very open-minded, and yes, he does have some views that I don't necessarily agree with, but at least he's open to more ideas, and he was able to expand and grow himself while he was in prison, compared to a lot of other people who just go there and become worse. Now, with that being said, he did make a video about Diddy. I want to go ahead and play this video that he played here that gave a different perspective.
Diddy has garnered a lot of enemies over the past few months, the biggest being the United States government and its new criminal investigation against him. But his biggest enemy came in May of 2023 when he filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against the alcoholic beverage company Diageo. Why would Puff file a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against them? He claimed that they were engaging in racist practices. Before we get into the weeds of this lawsuit, let's talk about the company first. Diageo is the world's largest premium alcoholic beverage company with a net worth of $74 billion, making it the 254th most valuable company on the planet. Some of the key shareholders, Vanguard and BlackRock. And in 2023, Warren Buffett, the snowball, opened his wallet and spent $42 million on Diageo stock, which is currently selling for $136 a share on the NYSE stock index. Beyond Ciroc, which connects it to Puff, what other liquor brands do they own? Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Bailey's, Captain Morgan, to name a few. And in 2017, they purchased Don Julio and gave George Clooney $1 billion to purchase Casamigos. Those last two is where Puff has an issue. In 2007, Diageo was losing $40 million a year on a brand they had called Ciroc. So they contact Puff because they seen that he had a major influence in the lifestyle world. So Puffy signs on to promote Ciroc. Now the deal was he would just get a sponsorship fee for promoting the brand. He didn't have any ownership in it. Sort of like the influencer deals that you would see here where a company will contact the influencer and pay them a flat fee to promote a product. Same thing, way more money. Puffy sets out on this unprecedented advertising campaign, turns it completely around and makes Ciroc a household name and one of the most popular vodkas in the world, but he has no ownership in it. This leads to the flavored Ciroc variants, peach, apple, coconut. They don't give him any ownership in the unflavored Ciroc, but what they do tell him is you can get X amount of dollars off each case of flavored Ciroc that ships.
And real quick, I can honestly say that when it comes to Ciroc, I never drunk it. I'm not a vodka drinker. That was something I may have done when I was back in my early 20s, when I'm in my almost 40s. I'm more of a whiskey person now. But back then, Ciroc was not a thing that most people drank back then. So that's kind of interesting. I always thought that Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, he owned Ciroc and Diageo. So not Diageo. They'll see the other local name here.
That's when you see Diddy starting to heavily promote flavored Ciroc bottles and why he was doing that. What Diageo didn't see coming is having to pay him $60 million a year off that deal. Here's the important part. Before Diageo started their partnership with Diddy, they were shipping 40,000 cases of Ciroc a year. 10 years later, with Puff being the face of Ciroc and promoting it, they were shipping 2.6 million cases. Keep in mind, Puffy is a boss, not an influencer. During this time, Puff started to see that tequila was becoming the popular drink that people wanted. So Puff buys the tequila brand Deiago. And Diageo, the company that he has made billions, is the distributor of it. Unbeknownst to Puff, they had also went and bought Don Julio and Casamigos from George Clooney. Neither company had made them a dime in the past 10 years. And then what Diageo did really pissed off Puff. First, we got to talk about supply and demand. If a company controls your supply and demand, they can determine your financial future. If they only make a small supply of your product and ship it to a small number of locations where people can buy it, you're only going to have a few buyers. Diddy owned 50% of Deiago and Diageo owned the other 50%, and Diageo was responsible for supply and distribution. Unlike Ciroc, where Diddy didn't have any ownership, he owned 50% of Deiago. What does that mean? Out of the billions of dollars that Puffy had made selling Ciroc, they only had to give him a few $100 million. They made over $70 billion. But because Puff owned half of Deiago, they were going to have to split those billions with him. They resented paying Puff the few $100 millions for Ciroc. Now it was looking like they was going to have to split the billions with him down the middle. Remember, he took Ciroc from shipping 40,000 cases a year to 2.6 million. Even if he got close to doing for Deiago what he was doing for Ciroc, they were going to have to cut a huge check. Deiago launches and Puffy goes into full throttle salesman mode. Sort of like what he was doing.
There we go. It's Deiago. I knew it was a D liquor. Not Diageo. Deiago was the other liquor. I thought he owned Deiago, to be honest with you.
For Ciroc, but on steroids. Sales start to come in and they are abysmal. Diageo only made a small amount of Deiago and only shipped it to certain locations. What locations you talking about, comrade? The urban landscape. And Diageo stopped signing off on advertising budgets. So Diddy decides to investigate with his own people the infrastructure that Diageo had created to play their role in the contract of making Deiago a success. This brings us to the agave plant. Agave plants are the primary ingredients in making tequila, and they are grown in Mexico. So Diddy decides to send his people to Mexico to see how many agave plants Diageo had planted for Deiago.
I had to send my people down to Mexico, and this is just to tell you what the fight is about. They went down to Mexico, and when they got down there, they found out that there was 0 agave planted for Deiago. So there was no plan for us to be successful. There was no equal treatment. The other brands, they had agave planted.
And most of the agave that was planted for Casamigos, whom Diageo had just gave George Clooney $1 billion. Puff is pissed, and he files his lawsuit citing discrimination and breach of contract. This is where it gets really interesting, but I want to recap the company that Diddy is going.
It kind of seems like that Puff forgot that he was black, and he's not going to get equal treatment no matter how much money or influence you may have. Now, granted, Puff is associated with those brands, and of course, we know those brands because of Puff and Casamigos. I never really heard anybody talk about it or seen it anywhere. So you would think that Puff would get the better deal, but as you see, obviously not. No matter how much money you have, you're still black at the end of the day. And I'm pretty sure they didn't want to put money behind the man because since they knew his secrets, because if the executives at Diageo, BlackRock, or whoever, Vanguard, was not at his parties or any part of his freak-offs, I'm pretty sure maybe some of their associates were, and they saw the liability that he was. So that could be the other reason why he wasn't offered as much money. Sometimes it's how you carry yourself, not just in public, but in private too. Because rumors get around, and a bad reputation can make you lose everything fast, as we're seeing right now in Lifetime in real life.
Up against. Diageo is the 254th most valuable company on the planet, worth $74 billion. Its two main investors are BlackRock and Vanguard, two of the most powerful, richest companies on the planet. BlackRock and Vanguard together basically own the planet Earth. Pay close attention to this timeline. May of 2023, Puffy files his lawsuit. In June of 2003, Diageo gives a public response. They say that Diddy is trying to extract billions of dollars from the company, and his inflammatory rhetoric about racism is going to cast a bad shadow on the company. Then they filed a motion citing a part of Puff contract that said that this issue should be handled in private arbitration. Basically, they were saying if it wasn't for the claims of racism, this was just a standard business disagreement. In September, the judge presiding over that case denied that motion and set it for trial and made the trial open to the public. Remember, this is September. 1 month later, Cassie files her lawsuit. And the snowball that is currently the trials of Diddy started. Cassie files her lawsuit November 2003. January 2004, Puffy's lawsuit with Diageo gets resolved and they release a joint statement. Sean Combs and Diageo no longer have any business dealings. And guess what Diageo also got in this settlement? Full ownership of Deiago. And all y'all seem to care about is freak-offs and baby oil.
And there you go. Like I said, I thought that was a great video. It's a much different perspective than most people have given on the whole entire situation when it comes to Puff and the way he's going through right now. Do I think it's a coincidence that Cassie files a lawsuit right now or right after he goes after Diageo? Not at all. Did Puff get greedy and overvalue his worth, especially against these multi-billion-dollar companies and entities? Yes. Sometimes you just gotta know when to go ahead and just say, forget it. Let me go ahead and start my own stuff. The man supposedly had almost $1 billion or $1 billion. I would think with $1 billion, you should be able to find a way to get these agave plants, or however it's pronounced. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, and just growing yourself and start your own liquor from scratch. If that's something you truly want to do, and just take the money and just leave. But I don't know. There's like certain laws when it comes to that plant to where it can't be exported from Mexico. I don't know, things of that nature. You know, everything gets very complicated when it comes to you want to do your own thing. Sometimes the illegal aspect of it, or just start a completely different liquor. Maybe go down to New Orleans and help invest in some of the stuff there. Open something up in Atlanta there. There was multiple different options he could have did based off the work of his promotion of those two liquors, that he could have went independent and just said forget about it. But he chose to be greedy, and he thought he was more powerful and more important than what he really was. And now, as we see right now, I really do feel like Cassie went after Diddy now because she had the backing of, well, essentially BlackRock. And any conspiracy person, any person who knows a little bit about the world knows how powerful BlackRock is. Anyways, I know I said BlackRock, but let's be real here. They own that company, and yeah, it's pretty much going after BlackRock. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I did see the news recently where they were talking about how what he did to certain people underage, or the accusations of the people he did to people underage, and that surprised me the most. When I heard about him and that 17-year-old initially, I was like, okay, she could have potentially lied about her age, because you know plenty of women that do lie about their age to get with older men. There could be a misunderstanding. They're not making an excuse, but, you know, wrong is wrong in that instance, right? There's a reasonable doubt or disbelief you can have with a 17-year-old, especially back in the 90s, because it's not like today where you can Google somebody, Facebook somebody, do multiple searches to do verifications of how old somebody really is. back then you more or less ready to take somebody's word for it or look at an ID. Even then, faking IDs were a lot easier than it is today. But the ages that they said in that press conference yesterday, I say yesterday, but whenever you're watching, it's on October 1st. The ages they said on that was just downright despicable and disgusting. And no matter where he goes, he's going to have a hard time. Because the one universal thing that people do not mess with, at least that one moral code that everybody seems to have, whether you're a racist or extremist or you prefer just to stick to your own. You don't mess with kids. And if you mess with kids, you normally get messed with. So, if he does go to prison and be put in general population, I don't think he will last 6 months. I just don't see it. But anyways, it was nice to see somebody else have a different thought process when it came to this whole entire Diddy situation. Like you said, a lot of people just mainly caring about, the free costs and baby oil. And the baby oil is still a big conversation. Not necessarily you had 1,000 balls or what was really in them. I personally think it was LSD or something along those lines in there that was pretty concentrated that could make somebody feel some type of way. Just rub into the skin, because LSD on the skin can have an impact on a person. So that's what I think it is personally. I could be completely wrong. That's just my opinion of it. It's clear. Baby oil is clear. Mix it in there. He could get a new sealer. He's rich. And it's, use it for whatever. I personally thought when I first heard the whole entire 1,000 balls of baby oil, I honestly thought, okay, well, maybe he was just filling them up for a, what is this, like the small kiddie pools, so they can have like wrestling matches for the women. That was my mind process when I heard the 1,000 balls of baby oil. I wasn't thinking anything like, he was using it to, clap cheeks with men or have it laced with like LSD, like I said earlier. But the more you hear about Diddy and the stuff that goes on at his house and in his parties and everything else, and like the Allie Carter, her stories and things of that nature, you're just starting to realize that Diddy never really had the best reputation, but it's a lot worse than anybody ever can imagine. And then all the people that had taken pictures with him, interacted with him, or best friends with him, you got to ask yourself, how bad are they? Or are they even worse? Anyways, if you did watch, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.